we do here, just for those of you that don't know, it's we call it experiential education or interactive education. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. Anybody know how to ride a bike in here? Raise your hands. All right. If I brought a bike and maybe it's been a while since you've ridden a bike, could you ride one? Raise your hands. Yeah. You know how come you can ride a bike? Because you learn how to ride a bike, yes? And the way you learn how to ride a bike is you get on, you fall down, you get on, you fall down, and like that. You learn through experience. You don't read a book about it. You don't get lectured about it. You get on and you do it. And so this training works very much like that. It's very interactive, very experiential. It's very hands-on. The first night, the teens all came together, strangers. They were all looked around at one another like, what am I doing here? One of the first questions I ask them when they come to the training is, how many of you felt like you were pressured and made to come here by a parent? And they all raised their hand. Now, my job is to make sure and undo that, because they're not going to really create a whole lot for themselves if that's the only reason they're here. And so we worked on that and really got we asked the question a number of different ways. Why are you here? And what is it you want to take away from this training? What's the value that you're looking to create for yourself? One of the cornerstones or the underpinnings of the training is commitment. And so we do an exercise on the first night about commitment. All your teams agreed to some ground rules. So we all knew what the rules were we were going to play by. It keeps the training safe, keeps everybody moving in the same direction. But it's also an opportunity for me as a teenager to give my word and then follow through on what I said I was going to do. And so there's like 9 different ground rules. So there's a lot going on. A lot of what we're doing is we're asking the teens to become conscious and aware of what's rolling around in their heads. You know, we look at beliefs in these trainings, underlying beliefs and assumptions that you and I make about ourselves and how we relate to the rest of the world based on that stuff. And so my beliefs impact the way I think and my attitude. They impact the choices I make, the actions that I take, and at the end of the day, they impact the results that I have in my life. So if I want to shift the results in my life, let's look back at the foundation out of which I live my life, which are all those underlying beliefs and assumptions. So what we spent for the last 2.5 days doing was shining a spotlight on some things that I didn't know about myself. So that's what the teens have been looking at. Becoming conscious and aware of some things they might not have been thinking about or might not have been noticing about themselves. So, first night, commitment. I gave them some homework, sent them home. They probably said after the first night, I don't get it. What's the big deal here? All this guy did was talk to us. And he was kind of a jerk. You know, someone has to kind of lay down the law as far as the rules are concerned. And, you know, I guess I get to be that guy sometimes. Now, they're aware it wasn't a personal attack. Anything I said to them was really, you know, my job is to interrupt anything that might not be consistent with what they are committed to. And so they all agreed with that. And so the next day they came in. Yesterday in the morning, they came into the training, and we talked about leadership and the qualities and the characteristics that were important to each of them as it related to leaders. We did an exercise about responsibility and about where I choose, you know, and the power in choice in choosing. So they told a story about a time in their life where they felt they were a victim, like somebody did something to them. And then they got to look at the same story from a different perspective, a responsible point of view, and tell the same story. And what they learned was, by taking responsibility, I've got a lot more options available to me. And I'm in control when I'm responsible, versus someone else, and blaming someone else, and all the stuff I make up about that. You guys follow? So far, so good?
Yep.
So we did that because cornerstone number 2 of the training is responsibility. It's really important that we impress upon people this notion of responsibility and looking at things from a responsible set of lenses. They did an exercise about giving and taking and how giving and taking shows up in their relationships. They did an exercise. Now, we do some really crazy stuff in here, okay? It's really weird when you're a teenager. We did an exercise that we called a closed eye exercise. So we brought the lights down, they closed their eyes, and we talked about giving and taking and what it causes and creates in their lives. So we really look at the ways that teenagers take, how they take from themselves, how they take from other people. We talk about how how that impacts the family and the people around them, and we talk about how taking impacts the world that we live in. We also talk about giving, the flip side of that. What's the other possibility here? contribution. Contribution is another cornerstone of the training. These teens really have been contributing a great deal to one another in the way of feedback, in the way of support. They've really been a shoulder for one another throughout this training. That's how it works. The middle part of day 2 of the teen training is the teens really get to let go of stuff that doesn't work for them. They all got together, created a big circle, and told their deepest and darkest secrets. Things that they had done, or things that had been done to them, that they might have had some upset or some shame about, maybe not so proud of. The purpose for telling that stuff is to begin the process of letting go. When things happen to me, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make up things about myself. And sometimes those things aren't very positive. And so they can constrict me or hold me back in some way. And so the teens got an opportunity, and they were very, very honest, very powerful, very courageous with one another as they told their secrets. So earlier in the day we talk about events in life, and they're just events. What you and I do is we sort of bring our charge and our perspective and our interpretation to various events in our lives. And so the teens, as they're telling their secret, they get to take a look at, these are just events. What I do is I make up all the stuff that I make up about what happened. And so they got to start that process of letting go. We talk about mom and dad, or the people in their lives that represent mom and dad in this training. Now, we don't have a dartboard up, and there's nobody shooting darts at you, so remember, this is all about responsibility. But I learned how to be a young man, and they learned how to be young women based on the relationship they have with mom and dad a lot of times, or the people that represent mom and dad. And so we wanted to talk about that, and any upset or any hurt or any of the things that happen in the relationship. A lot of times you're unaware of those things. Could have been anything you said 5 years ago, and a teen grabs onto it and holds onto it, and they make up all kinds of things about you, them, and stuff. So we gave them a chance to do an exercise where they got to let go of all that stuff. They talk to you, they talk to themselves as well, and they also got to forgive the decisions they'd made. They got to forgive the stuff that they'd made up. They got to forgive you. Because forgiveness really is about them reclaiming their power in those situations. So when I forgive, I free myself up. I don't have to carry that burden anymore. Again, from a place of responsibility. So adults, don't worry about them blaming you. That was not the way that this process worked, and they're very, very clear about that. Okay? And then we finished last night with an exercise about choosing and about being honest in each and every moment. And so they did a really, really cool exercise where the training really begins to bond about that time. The first part of the training, we're kind of tilling up the soil, if you will, a little bit, so we can start planting some seeds about leadership. Because they all talked about the leader they aspire to be moving forward. And so we did that work early on so we could get to that place, plant some seeds, and let's start watering. They came in this morning. Let me go back for a moment. So homework last night, one of the homework assignments was to make sure and have an authentic and committed conversation with one or both parents, or the person in their lives that represent parents. Some of them did that. Some of them might not have done that. Be ready, because they will do it. Okay? They're going to come to you, and they're going to want to talk to you. And I have no idea what they want to talk to you about. They may just want to sit with you. Okay? Maybe as simple as that. But their homework last night, one of the assignments was to do that. They came in this morning, and as leaders, they got to start the training this morning. And they all shared about what they were learning. They shared about their homework from last night, and it was very, very powerful. This group got together really, they bonded very, very quickly. We did an exercise where we talked about the way to have the things I'm committed to turn out in my life. We have a little model called, if you want to have love in your relationships or trust in your relationships, well, you be trusting. And you do the things that trusting people do. And then you have trust in your life. And so that's kind of our little formula here we talk to the teens about. I had a conversation with them about the ways that they be and the things that they do to get what they want from you. So they all have these very, very good made-up ways. These ways that they be and things that they do to get what they want. Do you all know that they do that? Hello?
Yep.
You better believe it. And some of them have got a laundry list of them. I mean, they get like a Rolodex. Okay, this is Dad, I do this one. This is Mom, I do this one. Mom says no, go to Dad. You know, they've got all those. They also have masks that they wear, personas that they put on. And so we talk about those personas, and we talk about those strategies, those made-up ways that we be and do to get what we want. We call those rackets in the teen training. So when a teen is running their racket, that means they're really in their image, they're really in their persona, really wearing that mask and being inauthentic. So we did an exercise where they really got to get in groups with other people like them. They found out a little bit about, you know, how they were all similar. And then they did some skits where they really, really got to play up why their racket was the best racket of all time. It is the most obnoxious thing you've ever seen. And so they did a great job with that. We look at the reason I wear these masks, the reasons I run my racket is because I get certain things. There's goodies in this for me. And so we look at that stuff. What do you get for this? And they talked about that. And then we also talked about the prices that we pay. Now I told them I was a class clown in school. So I got laughter and I got included in a lot of things. But people didn't take me very seriously. That was a price I paid. You know, I had lots of acquaintances. I probably called them friends. But I didn't have any of those deep, meaningful friendships. You guys follow?
Yeah.
So they got to look at that stuff too. And so someone always asks the question, well, if I let go of all my masks and all this persona, what's left? What's the authentic me? And so we moved into an exercise called contracting, okay? Where the teens created a contract with themselves about the leader that they aspire to be moving forward. When you walk into the celebration tonight, as you walk in, if you look to your left, walking in, you'll see 48 contracts on the wall, okay? These are contracts. They did an insane exercise, okay, where they could kind of get out of here and come from their heart and invent and create their contract. So the entire training works together to have people get their contracts. And they did a phenomenal job there. It's insane. It's outrageous. But they all did it. And so they now have a contract. And so they'll probably tell you what their contract is. And so the opportunity here is I've created it, now I can step into that place and begin to organize myself around what I say I'm committed to as a leader. The last hour or so, they've been finishing up. We do power groups in the training. So they break up into small groups of 8 or 9 people. They have an adult coach that coaches them. They have team staff that coach as well. And so they're finishing up sort of their final remarks to one another right now about that. About 4 hours of this training are in those power groups. So they do a lot of work like that. The teens, they will share with me to a point, but they do a lot more of that personal sharing, if you will, in those power groups where there might be 8 or 9 people. You know, it's not quite as you know, ominous as sharing in front of 50 or 60 or 70 people. Some people will do that, but a lot won't. And so we give them a space to share about what they're learning, what's opening up like that in those power groups. So that's what they're doing over there next door. So that gives you kind of a little overview of what we've been working on. As I said, they have been fantastic. They walk in having no idea what they're really coming to, and then they're asked to really, really raise their level of participation way up right from the get-go. And this group has been hot. They have gone really, really hard. They worked hard. They've done great, so you can be proud of them. Best ways that you can support your team as a result of being here. Be available. That'd be the first thing I'd say. Be available. They may want to talk. They may just want to sit with you. Be available. The other thing I would say is they'll probably mess up. I wish this was like the magic formula, and we just went poof, you're now fixed, and poof, you're gonna never make another mistake, and they'll mess up. I make mistakes, and I've been doing this for 30 years. We all make mistakes, and your teens will too. So I guess I would caution you to, if they make a mistake, saying, see, that training didn't work. That would kind of undermine the work they have been doing. And then let the coaches coach them. So they've got coaching calls for the next couple of weeks. They've set up some coaching calls or communication lines with their coaches. They've been working with these coaches. The coaches are not here to parent them, so don't worry about that. But let them coach. If the teen asks you to coach them, certainly do that. But they've got coaches back here, okay? So that's what they'll be doing for the next couple of weeks. So that's a little idea about what we've been doing. I've got to get back over